Well, they've been underway for over an hour now in this final stage in London. They didn't get as far as the Wembley Arch, but they did cross Tower Bridge. Magnificent scenes there, aren't they? And that was the first sprint of the day. It was won by Ilio Kaiser. However, that didn't matter to the overall winner of the pink sprint jersey. That was confirmed now as Davitemon's Johan van Summeren, who received that jersey in Canterbury last night. He hangs on to it. Well, then they passed the dome of St Paul's Cathedral, the next landmark on their passage through the streets of London, and then it was a long past the embankment. If you were up in the London Eye, what a magnificent view you would have from 440 feet, looking over and seeing the cyclists come up towards Big Ben. And then, well, it was the only climb of the day up Highgate Hill. Ben Greenwood won the climb, so he finishes second overall in the King of the Mountain competition. But that honour of the spotted jersey goes to Andy Schleck. He received that last night, and he did enough today to keep hold of that spotted King of the Mountain jersey. Andy Schleck then a jersey winner on the Tour of Britain. Well, this was the Peloton coming round through Marble Arch. Sunday shoppers perhaps not so interested in the cycling, but they certainly are everywhere else on the route. And the yellow jersey, I'm pleased to say Martin Pedersen is safely round Hyde Park Corner and into the circuit, so we can rejoin the race live now with Chris Boardman and Hugh Porter.
Thank you very much indeed, Jill. There are thousands of people here on the Mall waiting for the conclusion of this final stage of the Tour of Britain. Glorious shot there of Buckingham Palace, and I can tell you that the whole field are in a long, thin line here with 17 laps to go, and that means the pressure is being applied at the front by the T-Mobile team. Obviously looking after the interest of Mark Cavendish, the British rider who at the moment is leading the sprint competition on 49 points. He's got 2 more than Russell Downing, and that's going to go right down to the wire. The green jersey, the second most coveted jersey in stage race riding. You score 15 points for a win on a stage, down to 1 for 15th. The man who amasses the most, of course, is the leader in that category. Let me just bring you up to date on sprint number 2. It was won by Ilio Kaiser from Christian House. Nick Noyens was in 3rd spot, and Fredrik Willems was 4th. But it doesn't make any difference to the overall situation for that intermediate sprint competition, because, as Jill said, Johan van Summeren with 30 points has already won it. He was in an emphatic lead. So Chris Boardman sitting alongside me here, a man that finished in the mid-30s in the Tour de France, and he wore the yellow jersey 3 times. This is a historic moment for British cycling, Chris.
Yep, and I think we're going to get a fantastic finish here today, and thankfully in the sunshine. It would have been a great deal of fun to have yet another day in the rain. They've been through everything on this tour. The CSC team, well, they know exactly what they've got to do today. They'll be quite happy to just ride hard on the front and keep it together all the way to the finish, because they know that Martin Pedersen is set to win this race overall. Martin Pedersen started the day with a 51-second cushion over his nearest challenger, Luis Pasamontes, the Spanish rider on the Unibet team. Here's the circuit. You can see it's an interesting circuit clockwise, finishes on the Mall, turns right into Horse Guards Road, down the back straight of Birdcage Walk, and then the right-hander near the Queen Victoria Memorial. And they're motoring around here at something like 30 miles an hour plus. Well, I think the speed is likely to stay controlled. You can see that teams who wanted this to end in a sprint finish, for example, Quick Step 3, very strong sprinters. Of course, CSC, because they're protecting Pedersen's lead, well, they'd be quite happy to just ride hard in the front and keep it together. But I don't think that's going to be happening all the way to the finish. Once the riders get to just a few laps of that finish line, I think we're going to see an awful lot of attacks. Great Britain will probably be making an awful lot of those, and I suspect Geraint Thomas of Great Britain, very strong rider. I think he might have a little go today. Of course, if it does come down to a sprint, well, they've got Roger Hammond, who's already won a stage that way in this race. I don't think you're far wrong there, Chris. But of course, as you said, the Quick Step team have got some quick men indeed. This Francesco Cicci, he's very, very fast. But there's the yellow jersey. Pedersen, he's been the revelation of the race ever since we finished at the top of the long hill in Castle Douglas, where he won the sprint from the 3 men. He surrendered the lead the next day to this young, talented Australian Matthew Goss, because Goss took time back on the intermediate sprints. But then Pedersen got the jersey back, and thanks to the big, strong riders in the CSC team who've worked very well here, they've kept this young Dane in yellow. But I think he's a rider we're going to hear a lot more about. Well, he's earned it. I mean, literally from day one, first moments of the race, he worked hard to claw himself into the lead, and then when he's been overhauled, he pushed back to take that jersey back again. And his team, of course, have respected that. They're working completely for him from halfway through this race. They decided that they were going for the overall classification, and of course it's all but done for them now. They've really just got to avoid any kind of problems, any crashes, any incidents. They will win this race overall, and justly so.
Wonderful atmosphere and glorious conditions here for the final stage, sponsored by Transport for London and London Development Agency, and of course this whetting the appetite of the cycling nation ready for the Tour de France next year, that will actually start right here in this location with the prologue time trial, and then of course stage one that will wind its way through Kent before getting back into France. So here they come, back to the line again. Course is very quick. They take a right-hander after they've gone past the finish here, and Chris Boardman and I stood and watched one of the warm-up races, and they certainly take that right-hander very quick.
Well, it's a wind-assisted ride down the mile. They're really being pushed along, so when they got through the finish line, take that right-hand turn, normally it wouldn't be a problem. It's quite a big sweeping curve, but they're approaching it at such speed, and when you get the maybe 10 abreast across the road, it could cause a problem. First attacks of the day coming in now, Hugh.
Yes, and it's one of the British boys that's trying to go away here from recycling. He's got one of the Danish amateurs with him. We've got a team of amateurs from Denmark riding in this race, and they are all actual track riders preparing for the World Championships. They are under 23 riders and very talented indeed, particularly Rasmussen, who's been a former world scratch champion with a lot of speed to spare. But this looks a little bit like Michael Morkov to me. But recycling, thirsting to try and get a stage victory. They've been knocking on the door, and Ben Greenwood has secured second place in the King of the Mountains by winning that final climb today on Highgate Hill.
It's a beautiful circuit for track riders. You can be quite a big bloke because you don't have to haul anything up hills here. It's fast sweeping bends, so it's for the powerful riders today. I think it does make it very, very difficult to get away, because if you're sitting in that peloton, maybe 2, 3, 4 wheels back, you're doing less than half the work. These guys are on the front, so making that breakaway is a very difficult affair. Really, you probably need 3, 4, maybe 5 riders working very closely together to have a good chance of building up a lead that can go all the way to the finish.
So the leading duo are just off the front, and both riders going strong here, but there's a lot of work to do to keep them at bay. It looks like Evan Oliphant on the recycling team, number 54, and he's got with him number 116, Andre Steensen of Denmark. These are the two at the moment are ahead, and it's a slender advantage, but Steensen is only 19 years of age, this rider in the red and white strip of Denmark.
Well, of course, the big teams there, Hugh, they don't mind if this happens, and they'll let them have a little bit of rope, let them do that, because it discourages other attacks. Of course, if they work really hard to bring them back quickly, well, that costs a lot of energy to do that, and you left yourself tired and open to counter-attacks. So it's all very, very tactical there. These guys will be left there and probably reeled in slowly in a short time.
It's a tall ask, isn't it, really, Chris, when the peloton are motoring at 30 miles an hour. I mean, you're going to need 10 miles an hour extra, really, to get clear. But you can get a moment of glory for your sponsor.
Absolutely, and maybe pick up some creams. There's a few pounds on the line as we go through this race. But we can see T-Mobile, well, I think Cavendish, as we mentioned earlier, second already, really, really close on a number of days in the sprint finishes. So he's desperate for a win, and I think his team might be getting it together today to try and make that happen.
Young Mark Cavendish, Commonwealth scratch champion, former World Madison champion, just 21 years of age. And this young fella is riding for the T-Mobile team under the auspice of the manager, and he's riding as what is known as a stagiaire. It means he's an apprentice. He rides the concluding 6 or 7 weeks for the T-Mobile team, and then if what they see is what they're looking for, then he's likely to be offered a full contract. And I tell you what, he's been sprinting with unbridled passion in this race, Chris, and I'm sure he's going to be flagged up to be a full-time pro.
Well, absolutely. He's had a tremendous amount of success early in his career. He's a very gutsy rider, very punchy. Doesn't do too well when you have to make very long, sustained efforts, but you don't need to do that if you've got a good team behind you. I think they have to be really careful. I think what they have to look out for here is riders jumping across that gap, and of course swelling the numbers at the front, and sometimes that's how these things can happen. Just 1 or 2 riders going up the road one at a time, and then suddenly you've got a group of 6 to 8, and it becomes awfully difficult to bring it back.
Well, of course, caption confirms the breakaway riders, Oliphant and Steensen, but if you're looking on the shot, when we do start to look down the line, when the sprint develops, Cavendish is riding actually in the green jersey today because he is the overall points leader. He's got just 2 points advantage over Russell Downing, the former professional road champion of our country. And also in the hunt is Francesco Cicci of Italy in the Quick-Step team on 44. So they've all got to be vigilant in the closing sprint.
Yeah, that's right. Quick-Step have got 3 very, very strong sprinters, but sometimes that can cause you a problem because you can't work out who's the chief and who's the Indians. So I'm sure they'll be looking to go out of this tour and top the 2 stage wins they've had so far, and I'm sure they'll be looking for another one today. Russell Downing has had a fantastic tour. He really has worked hard, as you just mentioned. Second in that green jersey competition, just 2 points behind Cavendish. Well, he'll be looking to try and overhaul Mark Cavendish on this final stage, and I think that one's really, well, it will go down to the wire today.
And Cavendish is smarting because he's been knocking on the door of a stage victory. He took the wrong, well, he got the right line actually on the island in Birmingham, but already the Belgian had slipped ahead of him and got the right line, and it was impossible really to close, and he got a second, and he's also had another second, a fourth and a seventh, so he's worthy of that victory, as we said. So it's a slender advantage, and I don't think it's going to be too long before these two are wheeled back in. Pro bike riders, Chris, and I think you'll agree with me here, always like to have the victory in a premier stage race on their CV. I mean, the Tour de France final stage is fiercely fought for.
Yeah, absolutely. And final stage is where it tends to finish in the capital, and of course that's the most prestigious stage of the entire race. I mean, first of all, you want to win it overall. If that's not possible, well, you win the first stage or the last stage. And the last, of course, is the last of the.
And of course, Evan Oliphant, this rider that is clear here. Evan Oliphant, former Scottish champion on 2 occasions, is the man that narrowly missed out on a stage victory in Nottingham last year at the end of stage 4. He was just picked by Sergei Ivanov, the Russian champion. He's a pretty handy rider, national champion on the grass as well, so he can sprint a little bit, and he's had 1 or 2 good performances to his credit this year in the Premier Calendar event. He had a second actually in stage 6 of the Tour of Langkawi earlier in the year, so he's a pretty good bike rider.
Well, T-Mobile have put 3 men on the front there now, working for Mark Cavendish to try and make sure this does indeed end in a sprint finish. One of those, of course, well, from what I could see, was world time trial champion Michael Rogers. And Michael Rogers, of course, imagine having somebody of that stature working for you when you're just 21 and you're serving an apprenticeship with the team. That's quite an honour.
Absolutely. Well, cycling in London really is in the midst of an incredible renaissance, with cycling in the capital growing faster than any other city in Europe.
Well, I have to say, I used to ride a lot of criteriums when I was preparing for the World Time Trial Championships, which is what Rogers is doing right now in just 3 weeks' time.
There's the yellow jersey. Martin Pedersen, just 23 years of age, a first-year professional, as we got an attack by one of the young Australian riders going away here. Australian team riding on the AIS team. They're based in Varese near Milan for 7 months of the year, and this is where these youngsters learn the trade, and they'll be being prepared, ready for the World Championships on the track, and of course the Olympics. And young Matthew Goss, who was the early leader in this race, he's a reigning world champion for the team pursuit. He was a member of that 4-man squad that clinched the gold medal in Bordeaux earlier this year. So they all have a great foundation of miles from road work, the endurance riders on the track.
Well, he may have just forced a fracture there. He's got 2 companions, and if they work together immediately, they may be able to consolidate that lead. But of course, the Peloton will be wary of that, and they will be going for it to try and close it down as fast as possible.
That's young James Meadley that's away. So young, he's probably one of the older members of the team at 22 years of age. Their team is actually managed by Brian Stevens, who has been looking after the squad. But there's an indication of how quick they're going. You see the rider forward on the peak of the saddle. That means he's fully extended. He's asking for everything.
Well, they're doing the right thing. They've started to work together. There's nobody trying to get their breath back because it's over in a blink of an eye if you pause. And they know what they're doing. They'll be very experienced criterium riders. And if they can bridge to the front too, well, of course, that will be quite a formidable breakaway.
Well, we'll have to see whether this will continue. It's an interesting development here. 3 strong now, and as you said earlier in commentary, Chris, as each rider creeps up to them and gives them that extra strength, it becomes more dangerous. Swapping turns evenly. And that's what it's all about. They call it bit and bit in cycling parlance, or they relay each other. One rider is on the front, and then the other one goes through, and the other one nips in the back to get the protection and get his second win. And that is how the pace lifts, and they're looking pretty good, these three.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, if you actually sit behind, it's like standing behind a wall in a high wind. You get an awful lot of protection, and it does make a difference. So you share the work evenly between the riders. I think right now, suddenly they become part of the same team. They're all working towards the same goal, and that will, of course, change dramatically as they near the finishing line. But before they do that, well, they've got to stay away for quite a considerable amount of time first.
So there they are, still working well.
It's another recycling.
Very close together, maximising that slipstream effect.
They're being given their head here, Chris. That gap is growing. They'll need to be alert to this as we near in the closing stages then of this finale here in sun-drenched London.
Well, when I used to ride as a professional, I was always told that you never let a breakaway go that is bigger than the amount of men you have to chase it. You have to have 3 guys here. They can't let this gain any more time. They have to be very careful. It's a strong breakaway. They can't afford to give it any more leeway.
So swinging to the right again. There's an indication of the strength of the wind as the trees are being buffeted. But, a crowd here massed all around this circuit. The leading group ahead, still going well.
I'd say they've got about 10 seconds lead there, which in a short race like this, so now they're on the circuit, is quite healthy, but they can't afford to ease off even a second.
Well, the leading caption showing the breakaway group there with Mark Cavendish, number 12, Rob Sharman and James Medley. I think it's number 112, actually, the other member of this group, who is Casper Jorgensen. Number 112 is the 3rd member of this group, just at the back, and not Mark Cavendish.
Well,
so
that is a Mark Cavendish, completely wrong colour jersey.
The Danish rider, actually 112, he's got 112, not 12. Cavendish is wearing 12, so that's Jorgensen of Denmark, one of their young riders. Well, this is looking pretty good, isn't it? The young Australian got his head down, and the Dane tucked in neatly behind him. And then right at the back there, also looking strong, is the member of the recycling team, and that is Robin Sharman.
Well, what they have to be careful of is something we've seen much earlier in this race, where when the breakaway they build a big significant lead that's enough to go for the stage win, and then they start to play cat and mouse in the final, and that lead can plummet by up to a minute in the last 2 kilometres. So they really have to drive and work hard and build this lead. It's going to take a long time to consolidate, and they have to be careful because it can be very, very quickly lost.
Well, Rob Sharman was away in the long break and stage 2 of the Tour of Britain last year when he peppered down with rain as they sprinted it out on the Golden Mile in Blackpool. It was Roger Hammer that was first home, but Sharman came in 2nd on that occasion, and 3rd. It was a blistering sprint there by Cavendish that came up the line 3rd, just beating the great Italian Luca Paolini. So Sharman knows what it's like to mix it with the best as well, and here he is right on the front, giving it absolutely everything.
Quite interesting to watch the setup behind there in the peloton. Telecom are just still using 3 men. They look relaxed. They think they've got the measure. They get a feel for whether they can hold this breakaway, and then they know how much energy they're using. They can decide how long it's going to take them to close that break. So a lot of experience there, and even more experience just sat maybe 10 wheels back from them is the Quick Step team. They're monitoring affairs, but they don't feel it's necessary yet to start to join in the chase. I think we'll be seeing them probably in about 10-20 minutes time start to come to the fore.
Well, I think that lead is beginning to grow here, Chris. It's looking very promising. There's going to be a lot of work to do for the main field to try and close them down, and they are working well together. Nobody's actually shirking. They're all giving it a good effort on the front and then swinging over to let the fellow breakaway rider to come through.
Well, so long as they keep doing that, they're always in with a chance, but I have to say my money is with the experience back in the main field at the moment. They are be giving some more rope, certainly, but it's still only 16 seconds, 15 seconds by my reckoning, and I don't think that's enough yet. They need to have well over a minute's lead for this to work.
15 seconds. 15 seconds the advantage now. So here they come to the line, and the crowd are going absolutely wild as the leaders come over.
Well, I'm down in the finish with Matt Goss, who was wearing yellow on this tour. Unfortunately, he had to climb off the bike. So what was the problem?
It was a bit of a knee problem, which I gained on the third day, and I think maybe a combination of a couple of things: the cold weather, me probably not stretching enough as I should enough, and you know, just 3 hard days in a row, and I sort of stepped off on the third day, which is disappointing while leading and in the front bunch, and I stepped off more as a precautionary thing, and it saved me. You know, if I kept going, I might have had a week off the bike and not be able to race the upcoming races, which I have.
Must be a shame not to be riding today because it's such beautiful weather and such great support, great crowds.
Yeah, today's the best weather we've had all week, and I'm standing on the sideline watching. But you know, it's a great race, and the crowd here is great today. It's great to be standing here watching even, and my teammates out front at the moment. So hopefully it goes all right.
Brilliant, good stuff.
So that was Matthew Goss, and I tell you what, that's a rider we're going to hear a lot more of. He's only 19 years of age. Had he have not had that knee problem, I'm just wondering what he would have done in the closing stages. He impressed us with the intermediate sprints. He was grabbing the 3 seconds at stake every time. And the knee injury, let's hope it quickly repairs. And of course, we'll look forward to seeing him riding in the future international events.
Well, just 19 years old, I think we are going to see a lot more of him, but I think perhaps a lot of experience as well. Suddenly when you're in that yellow jersey, it's fantastic to get it, but then of course you have to keep it, and suddenly it's a wholly different kind of pressure. One moment you're trying to get onto that top step, and then suddenly you're just trying to stop everybody taking it off you. So I think that also played quite a large part, that the weather was nasty, he was suffering like everybody else, the legs were really starting to hurt, and I think perhaps that knee injury became perhaps a little bit more important than it actually was.
Let's take a look here at the gap. There's no sign of the chasers. It's becoming useful, this now, and these, well, there they are. It is growing all of the time. It's coming down, Chris is telling me, so we'll see when we get the time split next time. It's Barlow World now starting to do the chasing in the red, and T-Mobile are tucking in right behind them. I know we've mentioned it already, but obviously they'll be looking after the interests of Cavendish, and with Barlow World, they've had the retirement at the start of the stage today of the former world champion Igor Astaloa, but they've got several big sprinters in their team. Ryan Cox from South Africa can move quickly, but Enrico Degano, the Italian on their team, he is very quick. He won the final stage here in the city of Westminster in the first Tour of Britain. So now, as you say, Chris, the sprinters are licking their lips, and the workers for the sprinters are beginning to reel the escapees in.
Well, I think this breakaway has stagnated now, really. It's stuck. It needed to be consolidating and gaining time very, very quickly at this point in the game, because no doubt they will lose it later on. And less than 15 seconds, it's nowhere near enough. I think their days are numbered.
And of course, these three riders, they're nowhere overall to affect the yellow jersey. That's why you can't see CSC at the moment doing any of the chasing. 14 seconds is now the advantage. 14 seconds the advantage. That lead is coming down all the time.
Well, they're working hard, and of course any kind of lull, and they may be able to take advantage of that. And they've made their move now. They're committed to doing this. They won't be able to save anything for the sprint, that's for sure. So once you're in, you've played your hand. They've got to see it all the way through.
Well, there we are, that aerial shot of the corner of Buckingham Palace as the field are going just along the side there. Terrific course this, and James's Park Lake in the middle, and the sun wonderfully warm today. Quite a lot of wind actually.
There is quite a lot of wind, Hugh, but I
quick.
think they're getting a large amount of shelter staying within the park and the trees and the high buildings here, so they're probably quite thankful for that. And I think that's fair enough. They've been windswept for a number of days, and I think this sunshine finish is just deserved.
So that is number 56, as you can see, still in the break, going well here. That's Robin Sharman. And the Dane on the front also with his head down, working very, very hard. How much longer are they going to last out in front here? The field are certainly starting to get excited at the back. The finish getting ever nearer. So there are 8 more laps to go then of this finishing circuit. That's 16 kilometers, or just over 9 laps. Look at the scenery here, wonderful shot, and there is the palace bathed in sunshine. And I'm just wondering if they're actually on the balcony watching the event. It's turning just in front of it, so It's a wonderful day for this opportunity, and of course the Tour de France is going to be right there in front of that magnificent palace. So coming up to the line once again, the flashing lights of the lead car at the head of the finishing funnel, and when they cross the line it will be 8 more laps to go.
Well, if they can get inside
1:56.
then that might be enough to spur them on and give them a little extra boost, but I just don't think it's going to happen for them. That sprint, Boonen has definitely got something to prove. He's not had the best of races so far, committed himself to his team on a couple of occasions during this race. The lead's not really changing very much. It looks to be staying roughly the same, but nobody in the peloton seems too worried about that. They know how to bring this down to the wire, and of course they bring that back, they'll get counter-attacks, so it's not really in their interests to reel it in just yet.
15 seconds, so it's gone up a second, the advantage. Gone up a second, 15 seconds the advantage, as 8 laps to go.
Well, we'll rejoin the race in a moment, but apart from all the excitement out on the circuit, there's plenty going on here down at the Mall, a bike fest showing everyone all the fun you can have on 2 wheels. There's street theatre, I think that's what it is, demonstrations of all sorts of bikes, different varieties, everybody having fun in the sun, and of course watching the racing. Earlier today, that was the Bob Chicken Grand Prix for cyclists from all over the country came in to compete in this. Malcolm Elliott won it. Now you might recognise that name because he's one of Britain's top sprinters, has been for many, many years. He's been a winner of stages of the Tour of France in his time. And also there was the Hand Cycling World Cup. Now this was a high quality field, 4 world record holders in it. First over the line, Arkadiusz Sprinska of Poland. He outsprinted the field to win the C1 category. Now though, let's get back to the action out there on the circuit with Chris and Hugh.
Thank you very much indeed, Jill. Here are the 3 still out in front. I still think I've got to get snapped up, and it's all going to happen in the closing stages. 14 seconds has been their advantage. It was pegged at that, but it has crept up 1 second the last split time we got. Right on the front here, working well and looking composed, is Robin Sharman. Going back to the Australian in the group with him, that is James Meadley and Kasper Jorgensen from Denmark.
Well, as we said earlier, this is the shot. They've taken it, they've committed themselves, they've got nothing left to give if this doesn't work, so they've got to absolutely do everything they can to try and make the most of it, and that's what they're doing, Hugh.
Absolutely pan flat this course. There they are, the Searing pack behind, weaving from side to side, and now hugging the right hand as they come down the finishing straight once again. Wonderful sight this. The crowd must be 20 deep around here. Thousands have turned out to watch the conclusion of this Tour of Britain. Over the line they go then with 7 laps remaining, and here come the field, and just waiting to see who's doing the pace setting on the front here. It's still T-Mobile, but there doesn't appear to be a real sense of urgency in it yet, Chris.
No, not at all. Within 14, 15, 16 seconds all the time, it is just staying exactly the same. So I don't think anybody's panicking just yet. They're all ready for that final push to the line, probably with around about 5 laps to go.
16 seconds the advantage, so it's been pegged, hasn't it, around 14 to 16. Now then, T-Mobile coming to the front once again with Barlow World. 2 riders there, so we've got 3 from T-Mobile, 2 from Barlow World, and the whole of the Quick-Step team behind Chris. There's 4 of them lined up there. So all these riders that have got big sprinters are now beginning to come to the front.
And sprint finishes are all about timing. If you use your men too early, you get swamped in the final, and all that hard work was for nothing. So they have to make sure that they play a really good game of poker, really. They have to leave it as late as possible, blast to the line and drop your man on the front with probably no more than 100, 150 metres to go. So it's a serious skill. Of course, they actually make a lot of money for being good at that, for being a good domestic rider, for working for someone like Tom Boonen.
Well, if we analyse the strengths analytically then from the Quick-Step team, I mean, Filippo Pozzato, number 6, has won the Milan-San Remo this year. Francesco Cicci, who's carrying race number 3, has been exceptionally quick in this race. And as we've said early, Tom Boonen, the world champion, really hasn't shown it. Now, what's happening here is either a puncture or we've had a crash. Looks like a rear wheel change.
Well, that's a very slow change, Hugh, and I tell you what, I would not like to be trying to get on the back in this race.
Here's a chance to see the incident. There he is on the right-hand side. Looks as though he's pulled his foot away from the pedal there.
Oh, his pedal's actually come off. Oh, he's either come off, I think the pedal has actually unscrewed.
Off the crank. Tell you what, he was lucky not to fall there. That is amazing. Well, you have to get the pedal refitted now. I would say he's got little or no chance of regaining the field. It's Patrick McCarthy, I think that is from the Phonak system. No, it's not. It's number 94. That was Andy Capel of Landbrau Credit. And that's a bit costly for him because he's 14th overall at 3:35, so he's going to lose some places there.
Well, if he can get back on, but that's not a quick fix like a wheel change, 5 seconds, and you're back into the convoy of cars behind the race. I think that may very well cost him his place, Hugh.
I think you're right. He's going to slip down the GC chart a few places there, but there we are. Our camera shot foreshortens the gap, but the field now are chasing their quarry. They've got them well and truly in their sights, and they're trying to reel them back in. 6 more laps to go.
I think it's coming down now, Hugh. I think everybody's getting ready for the final. You can see everybody's waiting there, looking around, waiting for somebody else to start the action. So everybody knows it's too early, but they want the race to start so they can get stuck in.
At 10 seconds, Chris, so they've chipped away at the advantage. They've taken back about 5 or 6 seconds on that lap. So if you work on that kind of average, with about 3 to go, the whole field could well be back together.
I think they're going to survive perhaps another 2, possibly 3 laps before they get swamped, and then the push for the line really starts. And it still isn't certain that it will finish in a sprint. I still think it's quite possible that people could take advantage, attack in that final couple of kilometres, and manage to outwit the sprinters.
Well, the riders that are involved then in the points competition for the green jersey, you've got Cavendish on 49, Downing's got 47, Cicci's got 44. These are the 3 big players for the green jersey, and they will be watching each other. They'll be all over each other like a rash in the closing stages.
Well, they may even have to decide what actually their tactics are for the finish. Are they really pushing? Certainly Mark Cavendish, is he going to push for the stage finish, or is he going to try and defend that green jersey, in which case he will watch the other riders, particularly of course Russell, Downing, rather than trying to set himself up for the sprint.
Monitor the finish of those 3 if we can. Obviously they're going to be enveloped in the searing pack as they come to the line. That's if these 3 don't stay clear, but I think with 2.5 to 3 to go, they're going to be pulled back, and the rider that had the pedal off is actually in the middle of the finishing straight, just to my right in front of the pit area, and he will rejoin in the main field.
Well, this has certainly been a hard day for them, but probably all the more palatable because they know when they hit the finish line, or when they finish this stage, then that's the end of the Tour of Britain, and they can have a well-deserved rest.
Let's have a look. There they are. That's the rider joining back in from the pit area who had the pedal off. And now it's Barlow World, T-Mobile at the front, CSC with the yellow jersey. He's about 5-6 back, and he's having a very safe ride here. Nobody from Quick-Step there at the moment, Chris.
No, but they are grouped, maybe 10, 15 riders back. They are grouped as a team, and I think that's what's important. That you can see them talking to each other, they're deciding how they're going to play this out. These 3 are just being left to get on with it for the moment while everyone works out how they're going to play out the final.
Well, Cavendish needs to get a good lead out from his teammates, because yesterday, with 50 metres to go, he got the head of the sprint approaching the line, but then Cicci went straight past him and threw his arms in the air. So he's going to have to keep an eye out for Cicci in the closing stages.
Well, timing, of course, all important. But don't forget, we've seen Robbie McEwen in the Tour de France who worked very, very effectively with just 1 lead-out man. And that is possible if you're tactically very smart. You can actually use other people's teams, sit behind their main man, defend that position because, of course, everybody else wants it as well, and actually use their lead-out train. So So if you're clever, I think you can manage to do that. And perhaps that's a skill that Mark Cavendish needs to perfect.
And let us not forget also, Chris, the 2012 Olympics road race is going to be right around this area as well, so that's something else to look forward to. It's going to be a real hotbed of racing here, the Tour de France next year, the 2012 Olympics.
I think it's clearly being demonstrated to you that the city is capable of doing it, and this, of course, is a fantastic dress rehearsal for that. They can make sure that all the systems are in place that they need to have, and from what we can see, I think they're well on the way to making that a very, very spectacular event in the Olympic Games.
Well, I'm learning actually that Cavendish has had a puncture, but he's rejoined after having a lap out, so that's a shame, isn't it? But he's recovered, and as they come round here to the line again, it's going to be 4 laps to go when they get back the next time. The leader's still here ahead, but for how much longer?
Well, surely the days must be numbered now.
Let's have a look down the road. Well, still some work to do. They are working well, these three. Medley from Australia, still going well. Kasper Jorgensen from Denmark in the red and white, and of course Robin Sharman. Sharman would really love to try and get one place better than he got in Blackpool when he was the runner-up.
Well, these three, they have just enough of an advantage to make it worthwhile continuing. Perhaps, I don't think, not quite enough to make it work. And they're just caught in that no man's land. They needed really to be gaining something like 5 to 10 seconds a lap in the early stages to have enough of a buffer. They haven't done that. They've got this 15 seconds marginal gap, and it's just stayed there. So purgatory for them. They've decided their tactics, and they have to stick with it all of the way.
Sharman has just swung off and offered the lead now to the Australian, who will keep the pace up, and that is Medley. And then in the middle it is the big Dane Jorgensen. They're travelling, as I said earlier, something like 30 miles an hour around this circuit, and the heat pretty stifling. So they're gulping in the air, and they'll be taking in quite a lot of liquid as they race around this loop.
I'm sure they'll be quite happy to have that. What a fantastic problem to have, that heat, considering what's happened to them over the last few days.
Well, that looks to me as though it's coming down significantly now. It's about 5 seconds the advantage. So that big effort from the bunch now looks as though they're going to bridge to the leaders. The junction's going to be made very shortly, and that means the whole field are going to be back together for a real big cavalry charge for the line here in London.
Well, just 3 laps to go. I think it's going to be a flurry of attacks as soon as these three are reeled in, and I'll be very surprised if they manage to make another lap out in front. Counter-attacks surely going to start coming soon. I think a lot of people, their only chance of a win in this stage is to escape from this very strong sprinters that we've got there.
It's very precarious, isn't it? Here comes the effort, and it looks like T-Mobile are the team that are doing the damage here at the front. T-Mobile coming up with blistering pace to spare here, bridging up to the 3, and they're going to be all together. And when they get to the line this time, it'll be 3 to go. It's about 15 metres, and the junction is made. It's the effort from the T-Mobile team that finally brings the breakaway back. It's all over. They're back together. Now then, we can start speculating on the outcome and looking at the sprinters.
Now, what's going to happen now is the sprint team will try and keep the pace very high. So anybody who wants to think about attacking, as soon as they stick their nose out to the wind, it's just too fast, and they can't accelerate quickly enough to get a gap between themselves and these riders. You can see the effort that the T-Mobile team is putting in here to make sure that nobody actually managed to have even a chance of making an escape. When the speed's this high, well, you can only stay out there for a few moments, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, so the attacks can only really happen inside the last 2 laps unless it slows down.
Well, the T-Mobile team have only got 4 left in this race. They lost Kloden on the first day, and then Olaf Pollock, the German rider, same as Kloden, also climbed off, so they've still got Cavendish, Kessler, Sinkovic and Rogers in the lineup.
Well, the only thing that can happen to deter them now is if there are a number of attacks, they can find themselves swamped, and it's very, very difficult to organise a chase away. So at the moment, moment, I'm just about managing to keep control. You can see the width of the bunch is changing. People are coming forward, pushing forward, just waiting for an opportunity to attack, and I think that's going to happen any moment.
And what often happens, Chris, is when they come together like that, there's quite often a slight lull in the action, and a crash, a big crash there. Riders have gone down just behind us. Look at this. This is what happens, and they're down. Now, is there anybody of any significance here? There's a British rider there limping away, I can see. There's Danish riders on the floor.
Nobody looks to be too seriously hurt, I don't think, there.
De Vitamon, Lotto, DFL are all in this. Let's take another look on it, see if somebody just loses a moment of concentration and touches a wheel. Down they go.
Well, it gets very nervous in the closing stages, and it was quite close to the front, which is why so many riders were involved.
The King of the Mountains is there, Chris. The King of the Mountains is there. That is Schleck.
Well, he just has to finish the day to retain that jersey, of course. But, that just affects his overall classification.
Chance to look at the crash again from the front. See what happens here. Owen Thijs was there also of the Unibet team.
It was just a touch of
there
wheels.
the Dane went right up in the air, Chris.
Yeah, it was just a touch of wheels, one of those things that you can't do anything about. And it happens in the sport of cycling. Everyone's trying to get close together to maximise that slipstream effect, waiting, saving their energy for the sprint. And all it takes is one tiny touch. I've done it myself, and it all comes down like a pack of cards.
Looks like the big fella of Bert Roosman's there off the back, the former leader on the King of the Mountains. But look at this. 2.5 laps to go. The CSC team have come to the front, and what they've done, they've raised the tempo to look after the yellow jersey and keep him out of danger.
Well, that's exactly what they do. So he'll stay in the first 10, so he's okay. If you did notice there in the right of our shot, we actually have the Great Britain team, and there they are. They're trying to get something going.
And have you noticed on the other side of the road as well, Chris, that the Quick Step team are coming through as well with Pizzato. So we're going to get a lot of action here in the concluding stages. 1 or 2 riders limping down the finishing straight that are involved in the crash, but here come the British team on the front.
Led by Geraint Thomas there.
Absolutely, former junior world champion, and they're absolutely fired up. They're going to be trying to lead out Roger Hammond.
Well, fantastic ride in there. I mean, really great to see that a young Great Britain team competing with some of the very best in the world. We can see Ian Stannard just coming through now. He is a very, very strong time trialist, so that's exactly the kind of job that they will get him to do. But they have gone with an awful long way out there, Hugh. Still 2 laps to go. It's a long way to go for this kind of effort.
It's about 3 miles left when they get to the line. Now, how much have they got in the legs, these young British boys? They are very quick. They're based in Italy, in Tuscany, where they train in the British Olympic Academy. So they've got good preparation. They ride on the Italian road circuit and have got lots of stage racing in the legs. So the preparation has been first class for them. There they go. And tucked in right on the back wheel of the British train is Juan Manuel Garate, the leader in the Quick Step team. But he's not the sprinter. Garate is a climber, but he's just keeping an eye on the British team, trying to disrupt their work.
Well, as feared, it's just very early to do it, perhaps spurred on by the crowd, but there's only 2 of them left. You can see that there's members of all the key teams here, all ready to play, but it's Quick Step that are keeping their powder dry. Perhaps the youthful enthusiasm of the GB riders has made them go a little bit early. Quick Step have still got all of their men back 8 places.
And they're all in line, aren't they, Quick Step? So look out for them trying to move to the front. They're going to be looking after Chi-Chi and possibly Bonan in the world stripes, but it's still Great Britain at the front, burying themselves. I think you said it, Chris, they've probably got a bit too early.
I think that's young Ben Swift there involved in the crash. He's actually joined back into the race. I'm not actually sure that he's allowed to do that inside the last 2 laps, because now he's going to try and work with his team, and that will affect the course of the race. So we'll let the judges sort that one out.
This looks a little bit like Art Verhoeven on the left for the Skill Shimano team. He's pretty quick. He was 3rd in Liverpool, and he was quite prominent in the finish yesterday in Canterbury.
Well, coming round to the bell now, and of course that's the sound that makes people react in a wholly different way. Suddenly you forget about the pain in the legs, and you can see that the finish line is just there. You've got to set your man up for the finish. Roger Hammond probably nowhere near his men. They're too far forward. He'll be sat right back with the likes of Chi-Chi, with the likes of Tom Boonen, waiting for the sprint to start.
We're going to have a look for where Cavendish is, and we've got to keep an eye out, of course, for their nearest challenger to Cavendish in the overall points classification, and that of course is Downing, Russell Downing, the former pro champion, and Francesco Cicci is the other man. They are actually racing it out for the points competition. One of them might have been delayed in that crash, actually. We didn't see the complete set of numbers, but they're coming round once again. It'll be the welcome sound of the bell this time. Music to their ears, 1 lap to go to conclude the third Tour of Britain bike race.
Well, certainly Quick-Step look to be doing the right thing. They're just going to wait for GB to finish their job, and then they're going to take it on, I suspect, for the entire last lap. And they, at the moment, they have done hardly anything to assist the chasing. They've got fresh legs, and this last lap is going to be at a blistering pace.
That's Andy Tennant on the front from Wolverhampton, former junior World Pursuit champion. Look at that, he's gritting his teeth, holding a low profile there as he tries to find more pace. But he's got the wrong man in his wheel, actually, because he's got the faster Kretschkens from Quick-Step. So that was Wilfried Kretschkens in the wheel of Andy Tennant.
Well,
Less than 1 lap to go. Sorry, Chris.
That's what he meant to do, really. I mean, he didn't want to be on his wheel because he's just too far forward. So sometimes you'll get your men to mix in with other teams, so the whole speed stays higher. The sprinters are nicely placed at the front, and everybody else is pinned in place. No possibility of an attack when it's going this fast. But we've got a slight lull here, Hugh. They're going to have to be very careful, or it will start to bunch up again, and there's dangers of crashes.
And Quick-Step are very powerfully placed. Now look at that, looks like about 5 of them in line here, and they'll start to wind it up and swing off, and then of course it'll come down like a set of dominoes going down till their big sprinter is the last man to come through.
Well, Tom Boonan's nicely placed there, and you look just on his wheel. Oh, that's Roger Hammond, who's got a beautiful place. We talked before about using other people's teams, and that's exactly what he's done, and that's experience. Can't see any sign of Mark Cavendish. He's a little bit further back, maybe hanging around.
Yes, the green jersey.
He's on Michael Rogers' wheel. Well, that's a good wheel to have, and I think they're both well placed for this sprint.
And of course, if he can stay ahead of Downing, and of course, more importantly still, well ahead of the Italian, and that is Cicci. He's got the green jersey, but look at the power now that's being turned on at the front here by the Quick-Step team. And I tell you what, they're trying to set it up for Bonan. He wants to close this Tour of Britain out in a positive mood.
I think they find themselves yet again deposited him just a little bit too far forward. What each of these men is doing is they're doing their sprint now. Their finish line ends with a few hundred meters to go to the line.
That looked like Nick Noyens to me that did that big turn. He, of course, was the winner of this Tour of Britain last year. Now then, get ready for the release on the front, and it's going to be Bonan that comes off the wheel and searching for the line and the victory. The finishing straight is now unfolding between the riders. See, they come. This is the concluding stages of the Tour of Britain, the 6th and final stage here on the Mall. Look out for Bonan, the world champion. Has he got the firepower to take it? The green jersey of Cavendish is on the right as well, but it's Tom Bonan, the world champion, that comes to the front in the white jersey with the rainbow colours. Bonan's coming to the line. Bonan takes it. Bonan wins the final stage. Second place was Roger Hammond, and third place it looked like Mark Cavendish in the green jersey. The first 3 over the line. Terrific sprint there by Tom Bonan, the world champion. Hammond coming in second, and the green jersey third. There he is, Mark Cavendish. That means he will retain the points jersey. Here's a chance to see it again. Bonan released from a perfect build-up by his team, and then he comes over the line to throw his arms in the air for victory. And let's take a look. I think it was Roger Hammond for second spot, and the green jersey of Mark Cavendish, good sprinting by him, that give us the points jersey.
Well, I have to say that's the first time Quick-Step have got it right for probably all of this race, and definitely all of the Tour de France. Roger Hammond, fantastic ride there, just couldn't come off the wheel, he was going that fast. Mark Cavendish came from a long way back, but a fantastic sprint by him. I can see him being one of the world's best sprinters within the next 2 to 3 years.
So terrific finish there. First 3 over the line again. Tom Bonan.
And that's what teamwork is all about. We saw his men spend themselves in the last lap, the absolute full-on sprints, finishing their race with hundreds of meters to go to make sure this man had a chance of victory, and he followed through and repaid them, and that's why they will give themselves up for him.
Well, it's all about the teamwork in the closing stages there.
Mark Cavendish coming from an awful long way back there. He did a fantastic job there to get third. It really was quite a good job there. Roger Hammond got himself tactically in the right place, but didn't have the legs to get off Boonan's wheel.
What a finish, Chris. What a finish. And Bonan, when he senses a victory, there's no stopping him.
So, Tom, a great finish.
For you too, You've been running, eh?
Yeah, I've been running to catch you, What's it like to race in London?
Oh, this was special. It's almost the same as finishing the Tour de France in Paris on the Champs-Élysées. Only difference is that it's behind a 3-week stage race, but it's very special. You got all this famous buildings, and it's a serious effort, I think, to get the traffic out of London for a race.
Now, the crash in the third last lap, did that affect you at all?
No, I think one spot on the left behind me. I had to move for a little bit, but it didn't affect me.
And what was it? The conditions were fine today. Obviously, we've had some rain over the weeks. It was obviously nice to race in good weather finally.
It is. I've been waiting for this since I stopped in the Tour. It's been raining like almost every day, and not only here, also in Belgium. So together with the sun, the victories are coming.
So what are your plans now? You're off to the World Championships, obviously.
Yeah, I got some more races to do this week and next week and the week after, so I got a bit busy schedule.
So has this been good preparations for defending that World Championship jersey?
It always is, if you can race. But this was perfect for the calendar. I mean, I did an Eco Tour, 8 days, then a few days easy, now this. And now I can finish the condition with some longer races, and then hope I'll be fine.
Well, good luck, and congratulations today.
Well, back to Tom Bonan there. Let's take another look at the closing stages of this sprint. Here they come. Bonan on the front. Got it absolutely spot on, Chris.
I think I saw a mix here. I saw Boonen at last, his team got it right. I saw Roger Hammond, who was tactically perfect in this race. He's used his team early on, and then he used quick steps, but he just didn't have the legs. Mark Cavendish, what a ride from him. He really had the legs, and he didn't quite have that tactical edge of Hammond. So if he gets that together, we're seeing a real sprinter for the future.
But of course, he's got a big future ahead of him. Absolutely.
Well, certainly as a stagiaire, an apprentice at T-Mobile, they must be sure that he's going to be a man for the
across
future.
the line, Chris. Bonan, well, he got a clear length advantage there, but it was good sprinting by Hammond for second. That's revenge, of course, from Liverpool, where Bonan got the wrong line and Hammond got the right line. Cavendish in the green over the line third, and in fourth position it was Elio Keizer, who's been sprinting brilliantly all day. Behind Keizer in fifth spot, Leon van Bon, who's had a quiet Tour of Britain, and sixth was Verhouten, finishing sixth.
Well, I'm in the finish with the yellow jersey. Martin, you managed to stay out of trouble today.
Yeah, we just had to take it easy and stay out of trouble. It was pretty close at the finish. There was a big crash and I was just behind them, so luckily I made it to the finish.
What was it like to race through the streets of London?
It was very big. It was a beautiful day, and we had some time to look at the city while we raced in it.
Now, your race, your lead was developed on the very first stage. That was quite a move that you did in Scotland.
Yeah, I was just in the front and went in the wheel, and we got the gap and managed to stay to the finish. And from there on, yeah, I was going pretty good. So.
You had good support from your team over this week, though.
Yeah, it was very, very good teamwork. Sometimes I just sit in the back and say, I'm a lucky guy to sit behind 5 so strong guys.
Now, next year the Tour de France is starting in London. Do you hope to be there?
Yeah, I'm hoping, but CSC is a very strong team, so no doubt you have to be in really good form to be in the Tour de France.
Well, hopefully this Tour win in the Tour of Britain will have done you some good for that.
Yeah, it's done some good thing, but it's the Tour de France is next year, and a lot can happen until then.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Now then, Chris, here's a chance to see the concluding 400 metres of the sprint to finish this tour, and the Quick Step team absolutely brilliantly well drilled on the front.
Now you can see why timing is absolutely critical, because if they're one man short, Tom Boonen will be hitting the front way too early and he'd die before he hit the line. So absolute perfection called for here. They timed it nicely. You can see each of these men doing their own sprint, but to a wholly different finish line to make sure that Boonen gets to go all the way to the all-important finish line.
And then, of course, the front just released in time for Boonen to apply the final acceleration to the line. Brilliantly executed. There he is coming to the line. Boonen takes it. Hammond second. Cavendish third. But Cavendish, he's going to be a real super finisher as he begins to develop.
Watching that, I would say he was sprinting as fast as Tom Boonen, but had too much of a distance to close.
There's confirmation of the stage victory then. Boonen, the world champion of quick-step taking from Roger Hammond, representing the British team. And third place was Mark Cavendish, riding on the T-Mobile team.
Well, very shortly we'll have the presentations here of the yellow jersey and all the other jerseys after this magnificent tour of Britain. We had a magnificent finish here in the Mall this afternoon. This stage won by the world champion Tom Boonen, but crossing the line in third place and winning the green points jersey was Mark Cavendish, and he's talking to Graham Bell.
Mark, double congratulations. You won the green jersey and you've signed for T-Mobile.
Yeah, mate, you know, what a place to do it in Britain.
What was it like racing today?
Oh, it was great, you know, just going through London, it was a spectacular atmosphere, and then coming into the mall, the amount of people that are here, you know, I'm glad that they're interested in cycling in this country, you know.
Of course, you got the Tour de France here as well next year. It's a strong team, T-Mobile. Do you think you'll be involved with that?
I think maybe I'm a bit young. Maybe I can get some form over the winter to be able to do it, but I'm looking at 2009 maybe.
Now, you had a couple of stage second places. Would it be nice to take a stage win?
Yeah, I would have loved to have done it today. You know, I crashed on this stage last year, and I've had to come from 7th, 4th, 2 seconds, and I was hoping to win today, but you know, I didn't have the legs, so.
What's it like riding with, with Tom Boonen? He's such a great sprinter. Have you learned anything from him?
Not really, you know, but you know, it's great. It's great to be able to ride with riders you admire, but now it's time for T-Mobile, you know, I'm going to be doing a lot more often, and it's just part of what I do. So.
It's a very strong team. They won the team prize in the Tour de France this year. I mean, what are your expectations?
Oh, you know, I'm so excited. It's one of the biggest teams in the world. It's a dream for any lad my age to come and ride for T-Mobile, and yeah, I just hope I've got many years in it.
So to the Tour of Britain, you're going to climb on the podium, get your green jersey. What's been the abiding memory of this tour?
I think today, just seeing the amount of people out, you know, there's been a bit of trouble this week, but it's all been wiped clean with today. It's been a tremendous stage, and I think this will stick in my memory for a while.
So now you're a road racer. Are you going to give up riding on the track?
Oh, completely not. It's my roots, you know, and if it weren't for the track, I wouldn't have the form I've got to be able to ride the road. And, you know, with the Olympics coming up 2008 and then in London 2012, you know, it'll be good to do something for the country.
Well done. Congratulations today.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Mark Cavendish, a cyclist with a huge future already, of course, a Commonwealth world champion for the Isle of Man down in Melbourne in the velodrome, and now joining T-Mobile, one of the big powers in road racing. We'll watch his progress, I'm sure, with interest over the next few years.